Hey, Fedheads! Welcome to another episode of Cigar Chat, brought to you on the Armed Forces Radio Network, broadcast around the world. I'm your guest co-host, John the Cigar Surgeon. Cigar Chat is heard on podcast and every podcast catcher device around the world, and a lot that aren't. You can just download it. We're heard in all countries, including Burkina Faso, which I can't pronounce, but we're heard there.
Where is that?
It's on the west coast of Africa. Well, I shouldn't
Is
say
it
on
like
the
an
coast.
island?
No, it's a part of Africa. It's
Say it
not on the
again?
coast. Burkina Faso. We got
Burkina
listeners.
Faso.
Hmm.
Well, everyone from Burkina Faso.
And of course, that face you see is our host, Logan. How's it going down in sunny Texas? I assume it's still sunny. You guys don't get rain
It
this late
wasn't
near you.
sunny today. No, actually, it rained like horribly today. I mean, the last few days we've had record-breaking heat, which you got to realize it is early November, so most places aren't 90 degrees. So it was 90 for the past, like, I don't know, week or so.
Wow.
And then it's cooled off. It rained. I mean, it rained hard. Like, it probably rained like an inch in an hour. And then now it's cooled off. It's like 65, and it's real nice.
That's all right. It's in a weird
What about you?
twist. Well, I'm kind of bundled mostly because I'm going to be out here for a bunch of hours, but it's actually pretty warm here. It was trying to do the freedom Celsius to freedom degrees conversion in my head here, but it was like high 60s today, which for here for November.
That's not much higher than us.
No, I mean people will be out this weekend smoking like in t-shirts and light jackets because it'll be probably 72 tomorrow. I think it's going to be 73 or 74 on Saturday. It's not going to stay like that, but hey, if we can get another herf in this weekend, we're absolutely going to just rage.
Oh, of course. But how's that going to work with Laura coming back home, or is she not coming home this weekend?
Well, so that's the challenge. Obviously, I can't smoke. So for those who aren't aware, my significant other is away during the week
Sorry.
for school. So, of course, the downside is the weather always seems to work out. And it worked out when she lived here, too, is like the time we're going to spend together is like the one day in the week it wasn't raining or crappy weather. And I'm like, of course, the cigar gods are displeased with me. So I won't be smoking this weekend because in addition to obviously only seeing her on the weekend, I'm going on assignment in 8 days.
Where are you going again?
I'm going down
And
to...
what are you doing?
Well, so I've been to Nicaragua a few times, once or twice. So for those who aren't aware, I'm the general manager of a cigar chain, a big cigar chain, actually the largest.
One of the
true tobacconist.
fastest growing cigar chains in the world, I would put forth.
I mean, who else in the world opened 3 cigar stores in October? Let me ask you this, Logan.
Who else has 15 cigar stores, period?
16, my friend.
It's 16 now, okay.
With 8
It's
more
growing so
sold and on
fast
the
I
way.
can't even keep track.
I can't even keep track. So, of course, that was busy October, so now we're kind of taking it a little bit easy, supposedly. And so we're going to take the franchisees down to Esteli, down to check out operations and, give them the experience. Obviously, you've been down there a bunch of times. I've been down there a bunch of times.
Is
But-
it Drew Estate?
No, it's
Just Drew
going to
Estate?
no, it's going to be another cigar company. So we're
Okay.
gonna basically take them from, same kind of thing. We're gonna show them from seed to finished product and everything in between. Walk them through some tasting and really sort of familiarize them with the product because I think in a lot of ways, if you haven't been down there, it's. I mean, if you're experiencing it for the first time, it's a pretty incredible trip. I mean, I still enjoy it for the 4th time, but I mean, unless I'm going to start my growing operations in wherever your land is that I always forget the name of. I don't think I need to learn
America.
more about tobacco growing. I know
Yeah.
a reasonable amount about the operations now. It's still exciting for me to go down, but I'm gonna kind of see it through their eyes, really.
Yeah, no, that'll be good. It'll be very nice. I mean, so you're taking down your franchisors.
Franchisors, I think what would be the plural? So we're the franchisor, and they'd be the franchisees. Franchisees. So and actually, ironically, my CEO, who's obviously a big cigar guy, he has never been down to Nicaragua either.
How is that possible?
He's to be fair, he's been to the Dominican and he's been to Honduras. So, he's definitely got 2 countries up on me. But I told him, get your rest, bro, because this coming week, when we get down there, like from the moment we
Rage.
land in the airport, we are raging. And I mean raging, raging. I'm like, you better get your rum liver on because Daddy's going to drink some rum.
Dude, it'll be a good trip. It'll be a good trip, man. I never want to pass up an opportunity to go to Nicaragua.
Nah.
We'll be going soon. Announcement, maybe.
Spoilers.
TBD. Spoiler alert.
Now, it's
But
not,
yeah, man.
It's not like Rob level spoilers where you just blurt it out and tell everyone,
No,
right?
yeah, Rob's a Jacobo. He just kind of just blurted it out and was just like, "Hey, I'm gonna tell everyone what's going on because I don't know, I'm not on the same page as everyone because I'm Rob."
Apologies to everyone who tuned in live to the Cigar Chat last Thursday. We had a pre-record sharing our pairings, so we got a little lit up, and Rob got a little loose.
Rob was way lit up.
Way lit up. He had two, one 10.5 ABV beer and one 11.5 ABV beer. So normally that's a bit of a rager for us. And he let slip the spoilers, the big spoiler from The Walking Dead, and just kind of dropped it casually. Didn't even get me a chance to mute him or anything. So if you're watching the previously recorded version of that or the podcast, we carefully edited that out to avoid spoilers. I appreciate extra work. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Speaking of Nicaragua, Rob's in Nicaragua right now.
Of course he is. Is he ever home? Is he ever home working? Because every time I talk to him, you know, he and Dana are off traveling the world. I think he might travel more than I do, which is saying something.
I would submit that they probably travel more because they have no kids.
That is a big difference.
I guess you don't either, but you're kind of locked down on the weekends now. But I would submit that they travel a lot, but it's not internationally.
That's actually
very
fair.
domestic.
Very domestic. But
very
you know,
domestic.
if you're living in the States, first of all, you can fly from San Francisco. You can probably fly to 3 or 4 states for less than $200 a head.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, depending on when you book, but yeah.
I probably wouldn't be home ever. I mean, when flights here, the cheapest flights are usually to Vegas, and I'm still probably dropping $380, $400. So if I could travel from my city to a city that's not Winnipeg or Edmonton, because why would you go to those places for $100?
For kicks, man.
Just for kicks, man. I just want to try the coffee and see if it's any different, bro.
I just wanted just to say you've been. What about going up to like the Arctic Circle?
There's cool
just
tour
like
groups.
Eskimo in it for like a week too or something.
By the way, apparently that is a ethnic slur. Just so you know.
Eskimo in it?
It is. Eskimo is a ethnic slur. This is me educating you in the ways of the changing world. They prefer to be called Inuit.
Eskimo? No.
Yeah.
Well, I knew that's their proper name, but Eskimo is not. So you're trying to tell me? Let's go to a law school LSAT question here.
Roger that.
You're saying African American is to the N word as Inuit is to Eskimo.
That is correct. That would be the equivalent of saying I am ending it. Yes,
absolutely
I'm telling you.
not. Dude,
I don't make the rules. I'm as white as a ghost. I am a white pale Canadian. I don't get to make the rules. I mean, I can determine what ethnic slurs are appropriate to my people, but I don't get to decide what's appropriate for their people.
I
don't know what to tell you.
I don't want to offend any Canadians here, but you guys are a little more soft on that kind of stuff than Americans. Is this a Canadian thing, or is this like a worldwide global thing that Logan's never been included?
No, that's actually a worldwide global thing. To be fair, I wasn't actually aware of it until I think 2 years ago, because I dropped the E word and someone's like, "Ooh, bro," and I'm like, "Yeah," and they kind of gave me a little bit of an education. I was like, "Okay, I didn't know."
Well, now I'm educated.
I mean, there's like sitting through that. What was that movie with? Oh man, I'm just drawing a blank. This is what happens when you participate in National Stout Day, where it was on the lawn. It was the
Gran Torino.
Gran Torino. Thank you. See, I appreciate. You know what, Logan?
It's funny whenever you're referencing a racist movie setting on the lawn, and the only one I can think of is Gran Torino.
So
that was such a great movie.
And I appreciate having my back. It just goes to show how long we've been working together. So
yeah,
I was sitting through Gran Torino, and he's dropping racist words, and most of the words I got. He started dropping terms, and I turned to the person I was with, and I'm like, I I don't even know what that means. Like, does that mean I'm too Canadian, or like, do I just not live in a particular area that this is used? Like,
Prevalent, yeah.
yeah, it was. I mean, it was an uncomfortable movie. I laughed and then went, oh, I probably shouldn't be laughing at that. And then, he dropped a bunch of ethnic slurs, and I was like, I don't even know who that applies to. Who,
You're like,
anyways,
I've never even heard that term
I've
before.
never even heard that term before.
Well, John, consider yourself lucky because most of that movie reminded me of my hometown,
I could see that, Missouri.
Missouri. Yeah, a little bit. So, what do we got? So, everyone who's listening, we don't have a guest tonight because Rob decided not to book one before leaving the country. So, it's just me and John just hanging out. I'll have to give all full credit due to John here, is that John, being the prepper, planner, list maker that he is, approximately, I would say 6:30 this morning, my time.
That's about right, yeah.
Had about, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 topics that we could discuss. And unfortunately, I did not reply to that email till noon. So I think we're probably locked into that, which is great because some of the topics are really good. So we're just going to be taking, we can ask some audience questions if you have any, but we've got some topics I think are good thought benders that will bend your ear on tonight.
Yeah, and I think there was some huge news dropped over the last couple of days, and probably some news that maybe slipped under the radar, which I think for the companies involved, they probably wanted it to slip under the radar, but definitely some hot topics. And before we get into that, I just want to remind our audience, first of all, you're tuned into CigarChat, heard around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. You can turn into CigarFederation.com, heard on YouTube, obviously live on CigarFederation.com, picked up on all podcast catchers around the world. I've forgotten who our first segment is brought to us by. Is it Cigar Oasis?
Gurkha.
Is it Gurkha? Oh, people should go down to their local B&M, and they should try the Heritage Maduro or the 93 rated Heritage. I heard it's pretty good. And if your B&M doesn't have it, then your B&M has got to be like a gas station, because every B&M in the world that I've ever been to, and I've been to a few in the States, they've all got Gurkha in stock.
Including the ones in Canada, eh?
That's actually a true fact. We actually have, in all of our stores, we carry Gurkha product, and we constantly have people come in. And, obviously with the price point, Gurkha is pretty reasonable in the States. They've got a pretty wide range. But you come up to Canada. It's not cheap, dog. Like, when you drop $28, $30 in a cigar, that gives you a little bit of pause. Yeah.
Dude, I don't know, man. I'm complaining about the state of cigar smoking in the United States, but it could be worse. And speaking of, I got a really funny story to tell you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to tell you. So Cal and Allie was out tonight doing some chick thing, and so I had the pleasure of putting Callaway down and hanging out. So I had a fun time. Well, it was raining, so we were watching the rain, and I had on Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and she's like, "What's that, Daddy? What's that? What's that?" I go, "That's Captain America." She goes, "Captain America?" And I go, "Yeah." And then Captain America, aka Steve Rogers, whatever reason, and it was focusing on another character. She goes, "Daddy, more America, more America."
Turn up America.
I go, "Right there, honey. You're just total America." But anyways, stupid story. So anyways, we're on to it. So John, what are the topics we would like to discuss?
Well, first of all, I think you kind of touched on the topic that's going to lead us into this evening's discussion, which is coming to a store near you. And, we've been talking about this, and I think some people are a little sick of it, but this is the reality of the marketplace now with the FDA regulations in place, that some of the things that are going to be coming, and I think the first thing that's really most pressing in my mind is one of the big things that was in the FDA regulation was no samples, no manufacturer samples whatsoever. So obviously that came out in the news in a big way, because that meant no samples for the Cigar for Warriors project, which is a great project, by the way. And if you have the opportunity to donate money to Cigars for Warriors, please do. It's a great opportunity it's the number one requested item besides adult entertainment. So, you can see why you'd want adult entertainment when you're in the middle of a deployment and you're bored out of your tree. But you could still support them as an individual, but they confirmed that, in fact, the purpose of the
scope of the law.
The scope of the law was no manufacturer samples for the troops that are out on deployment and or retailers. And my first thought was, well, that's cool and all, but when you have an IPCPR trade show, and now I'm obviously on both. I kind of wear two hats. I'm a quote unquote cigar media guy, but I'm
Yep.
also in the retail in a big way. So I go down to Vegas, and let's say, casually, let's say between flights and hotel and food, you're probably dropping $1,300, $1,500 by it's all said and done.
Probably.
And you can't, bro, buy my new cigar. Okay, what does it taste like? Well, it tastes really good. Trust me.
Well, first off, let me just state that let's take out the retailer aspect of this for a second. In a pure media capacity, you aren't even legally allowed to buy the cigar
That's
at the
true.
show
That's true.
because you're not
I'm not a
a
retailer
wholesaler.
or a wholesaler.
Exactly. Right. So it's interesting because I've heard, a lot of different things. I've heard I've heard a lot of things. I've heard that the trade show would be exempted. I've heard that, there won't be a ban on, and it's still very fuzzy. Like it's still
Hmm.
very fuzzy in terms of, is that samples from manufacturers to retailers, or is that samples from retailers or manufacturers to media? Like, I don't really know. I mean, I think it still is a little fuzzy. I mean, I think it's a little bit more clear after the FDA thing, or after the Cigars for Warriors things came out. But I mean, it's frankly just kind of ridiculous. Like, I mean, I get the logic of, hey, maybe you don't want to do free samples of cigarettes because one cigarette and you're kind of hooked. One
Hmm.
cigar, like, it's not like, and I get how, I understand the FDA a little bit. I'm probably the only person that gets this. The reason why they're doing that is because it's much easier for them to have a blanket regulation versus specific regulations, because it's much easier to regulate and
Absolutely.
manage if there's one rule. You know what
Of
I mean?
course. Yep.
But the fact that we can't give cigars to troops. The other thing I think is quite interesting is because I kind of walk not so much the media line, but more of the retailer line. Well, what's from saying that Logan Lawler personally buys a box of cigars, at cost, and then donates them, then writes them off in his personal taxes? Because really, frankly, it shakes out the same way financially.
Hmm.
As if the business wrote it off, or if Logan Lawler, the person individual, wrote it off. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. But like, you can say that a retailer can't do it, but people that own retail shops are people that can buy cigars,
Hmm.
unless I guess for some reason you're under 18 or 21 or whatever your local jurisdiction is. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to Logan.
And I think we are on the same page. I understand why they went about it, because it's the easier route. I mean, it's just easier to come out with one deeming regulation that applies to everything. But obviously, when we talk about the complexities of the cigar market, where it's already difficult sometimes to market your product, especially if you're new, and then you've got this additional challenge of, now you've got 2 years to go through the approval process, and in addition to that, guy says, "Hey, I've got this new cigar. I'm a new cigar company." And I say, "Well, I've never heard of you. I don't know what your cigar product's like. Can I try it?" Well, the answer, of course, is no. You cannot try it. And that kind of lends itself to the next topic, which is, we're talking about the IPCPR. What happens between now and the IPCPR and the time after that? Because quite frankly, I mean, prior to coming on to Cigar Federation, yeah, I bought a lot of cigars out of my own pocket. I certainly wasn't getting any advertising revenue. No one, Rocky Patel was not sponsoring me. Rocky Patel didn't even know my name. And I was buying cigars out of my pocket and doing reviews for goodwill, I guess you'd essentially say. But the thing is, large cigar media, and I don't know if, we're kind of the middle guys. We're not the large
Oh,
guys.
half wheel. Half wheel.
Yeah, so let's say like the Half Wheel and the Stogie Geeks, when they have to, I mean, obviously they got an advertising budget, but the advertising budget only goes so far. And you start talking about having to buy all of your products. In essence, they're acting as an advertising and marketing arm of a cigar company. Now, I know, just so that people don't get their rankles in a twist here, I know if it's up to the manufacturers, they're perfectly fine giving away samples if they were legally allowed to. It's not them that made this
Some of them,
call.
yeah.
It's the FDA.
Yep.
So now you have to ask, well, how long are these media organizations going to be able to stick around and continue? Like, you're paying to have your site, you're paying to have a show. Now you're on top of that, you're paying to have the cigars, and you're paying to post the review. Well, doesn't really make a lot of economic sense from the point of a media person, does it?
Not really. It doesn't. I mean, I know we could probably talk about this for a year, but like I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. And I mean, at the end of the day, right? I mean, whole idea in, you know, cigars is a fellowship thing. You give out cigars. Like, and you'd be surprised, like, the other thing I think people don't think about and the FDA didn't take into consideration is that typically most people, and maybe I'm wrong, but most of the people that I know are traditional brick and mortar retailers don't like manufacturers giving out samples and don't let them, because giving out a free sample to a person at a shop impairs them from buying a cigar at the shop.
Absolutely.
So most of the time, unless it's an event, which, you know, a 2-for-1 or that kind of deal is still okay by the FDA.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, most of the time samples are somewhat frowned upon at retailers.
Yeah.
You know, like they don't just go around doing it because it's not good. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's kind of depressing in the sense that you're right. Like you look at IP, I mean, if the trade, I mean, let's just say worst case freaking scenario here, you know, high and right. If the trade show, regardless if it's a media capacity or even a retailer capacity, if you go to the show and you can't, especially with a retailer, you can't get a free sample trying something before you buy it, then what is the point in going to the trade show?
That's kind of the whole
other
purpose
than maybe
of the trade
seeing
show, isn't
people,
it?
other than seeing people, other than hanging out with people for 4 days.
I love hanging out with people, but you know, to hang out with people and drop $1,300-$1,500, I mean, bro, we're good friends, but you know, that's a lot to drop on just a party vacation.
Exactly. So I don't know, man. We will see. We will see. Any other parting words on that one?
So the parting words in that one is, you know, I think you kind of touched on it in our green room episode before we started. It's going to be almost impossible for a new media organization to start up now, because they've got all these, I mean, just like a new cigar company, they've got all these barriers in place to prevent them from starting up. It's all out of pocket. They're going to have to start from scratch. And I mean, the requirements to make, to meet the media requirements to go to the IPC bar in the first place is actually quite stringent, which is a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I said it's somewhat stringent. Yeah.
Somewhat stringent. So I think it's a huge barrier. You're not going to see, you know, just like with the cigar market, you're going to see not a lot of new players in the market because they can't be. You're not going to see a lot of new blood in the cigar media organizations. And I wonder how long it's going to be before we start seeing cigar media organizations decide that, hey, I already work a full-time job. I don't need to work 2 full-time jobs and pay for that second full-time job out of my pocket. How long is it going to be before we start seeing media organizations start to shutter?
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, even if you look at SigFed, I mean, I don't think SigFed's going anywhere. But I mean, I'll be frank that we've talked about
not after I brought that ring, bro. We got to stay around forever.
Not after you. That's true. But like, I could see. I mean, something like Half Wheel. Like, unless let's just say, you know, we're August 8th, 2018. I mean, the only news that Half Wheel's going to post is when someone actually brings a cigar to the market through the FDA process, which will be pretty much never, and or if someone gets bought, or smoking bans, or age raising of the, or, you know, age limit increases of buying tobacco products. Other than that, what is there to write about? Well, right, but no one's going to read that crap. Like, I think pure play communities and shows like this will continue to go on, right? Because I don't think that'll ever really go away. But think about it, like, we won't interview as many people, so it'll have to be focused on so much stuff. And yeah, there'll be some good content like, ooh, I'm smoking this cigar you can't even get anymore. So it'll be cool, but eventually that's going to dry up. So I don't know. Or unless we did a series of Where Are They Now and interview manufacturers after the end, seeing how down on their luck they are.
I feel like Fred would be a part of that just because he loves to make fun. Fred would be all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Logan, who is our next segment brought to us by?
Well, I'm hoping our next segment is brought to us by Drew Estate. And like I've been teasing the last couple of weeks, we got some big news coming from Drew Estate. Look for that probably next week, potentially. And while you're at it, download the Drew Diplomat app. I'm on it. Surgeon's on it. Anybody who's worth a crap's on it. Download it now and don't be a poser.
Don't be a
Poser.
Giacomo. Download the Cigar
Don't be-
Federation app and the Drew Estate app. Do it now.
Just do it. Don't ask questions. Just do it. Just do it.
Just do what you're told. Now,
Do what you're told, Mucky.
do what you're told. Now, as we continue to move on to some of the interesting news that dropped this week, one of the interesting pieces of information which kind of dropped in a very corporate-esque news bulletin, and I think has a lot behind it, Tabacalera USA, which is the retail arm of Imperial Tobacco. Imperial Tobacco, I think, is the second largest, or maybe the first largest now, tobacco manufacturer slash wholesaler slash whatever in the world.
It's even bigger than Scandinavian tobacco, I think.
Significantly larger than Scandinavian, actually.
That's what I thought.
And
Even, I mean, it's Altatis versus General, JR versus CI, just so everyone has an idea of what we're talking about here.
And we'll talk more about Altatis and their role in this, but first of all, for anyone who's been down to Texas, and if you haven't been living under a rock, and even I, as a Canadian, I'm well aware, the Serious Cigars, which is a fantastic chain of shops.
Huge.
First of all, props to Serious Cigars. If you're ever down in Houston and the surrounding area, you got to go into a Serious Cigar shop. The guys are top-notch. They got a killer humidor. When I went down to Houston, they were very welcoming. I was down there for business a couple of years back, and they invited me to stick around and watch the Super Bowl. Very welcoming. But they were just bought out by Imperial through Tabacalera USA, and all of those stores, with additional stores from JR stores, are going to be under the umbrella of the market brand of Casa de Monte Cristo stores.
It's interesting,
Isn't it?
Very interesting.
So now you've essentially got what really is the equivalent of a manufacturer. And it was already kind of people were already commenting about Casa de Monte Cristo, and there's a lot of Facebook discussion about a manufacturer directly entering the market.
Right.
And I wouldn't say they're necessarily competing directly with B&Ms, but you can see why a smaller manufacturer would be very concerned about a manufacturer directly entering the retail market, because now you're talking about
More money.
And you can, as a large manufacturer, you can just flat out dictate the terms of what's going to be in your stores and what's not. And if your stores are big enough, like think about the Apple stores, they get to dictate what's in their stores and what's not.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And that's
I mean, think of Walmart.
Walmart.
Walmart's a good example. Exactly. I mean, there's some serious. I mean, first of all, let me say this, and I probably go against the trend a little bit. And I've heard a lot of people, that have been complaining about this and that are upset about this. And I get your thing, but I come at it from the angle of, dude, this is America. This is one of the greatest countries on the earth, or one of the greatest countries in the world, and free market, man. So if they can do it, more power to them. And I know it's going to hurt the little guy, and it will. And I'm not advocating you hurt the little guy, but good for them. I just think that it's a pretty savvy move, and I applaud them for it. But at the end of the day, right, I think we have to acknowledge that, it's going to hurt some small shops, especially in and around the Dallas area and other places, for sure, and the Houston area.
Now I'm going to go Canadian, and I'm going to dig down on the snowpack here, and we're going to go one level deeper. So here's some next level conspiracy theory level stuff. Now, for those of the people out there that are not aware, Imperial Tobacco owns 50% of the Cuban marcas.
Yeah, I mean of the Cuban marks that are non-Cuban, or are you saying of Habanos SA?
Of Habanos SA.
Yeah, I know they're going to crush it.
So now, taking that one step further, we've already seen the softening of the embargo. Obama did his Giacomo decision to allow people to bring back up to 100 cigars, and then you obviously can bring more than that if you want to pay the duties.
Cuba. Not from just Cuba.
Not just from Cuba.
Anywhere. Because before, and that's the thing I struggle with. Before it was just Cuba, and it was $100, which basically equated to 3 or 4 cigars. Now you can bring up to your duty limit, which is 100 cigars from anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So now, taking that thought
to
the next logical extension, you've got these big showcase stores, these giant monolith stores. You've taken over Serious Cigars, which is one of the bigger chains out there. Now you're positioned strongly in the market. Let's say next year, let's say the embargo gets lifted. What happens? Well, all of those stores are now positioned to immediately drop 50, 100, 150 facings of Cuban product on the shelf immediately.
And could potentially limit everyone else from doing
and
so.
And potentially limit everyone else from doing so. So
which
now,
is savvy.
Well, I mean, now you've got a brand that big store, a lot of product, and now maybe they've got the exclusive retail opportunity to sell Cubans. And I mean, for all the talk about Cubans out there, anyone who's savvy enough and works in a B&M and has been putting up with in the States getting asked for the last couple months, or well, in the last couple of years, do you guys sell Cubans? The moment those floodgates open, I guarantee you, smokers and non-smokers alike will be flooding into those stores to pick up Cuban cigars.
It's true. I mean, yeah. No, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, right, I mean, and we could talk about Cubans forever, and take out the argument that Cubans are better or worse, or, you know, I don't really care about that. But for the people that smoke the 2Z cigars a year, that's like a celebration, it's a barbecue, those people are going to smoke Cubans. Those people are going to smoke Cubans. Now, people that smoke more cigars probably won't smoke exclusively Cubans. I mean, I'll mix in a few Cubans here and there and whatever, but it's definitely going to be a little impactful, I believe.
Now, it's going to be the last little bit of information just kind of tie this all together. Another little piece that got dropped this morning. Dan Carr, for those who aren't aware, Dan Carr used to be the president of General. Logan, how long was Dan Carr with General? It was a long time, wasn't it?
It was a hot minute. It was a long time. I want to say like 10 years, maybe.
That was where I was, like 9 or 10
years. It was a long time. It was a long time. It was before I was smoking cigars almost.
Yeah, so Dan Carr left General, I think, about a year ago. So no doubt had a non-compete, because that's how it works in the cigar industry. Just announced this morning he is the president for ITG Brands under, who else? Imperial Tobacco.
There you go.
So you've got this big world player in the manufacturing market making these big moves, and you got to wonder how many years prior have they been kind of setting up. To me, it's starting to look like a game of chess, not a game of checkers. You know, they're thinking a year, 2 years down the road. They're realizing with the FDA legislation in place that it's going to limit some of the market availability. It's going to limit some of the prices. It's going to limit some of the products. So what do? They start up these cigar B&Ms that are branded, these big brand names. They position a really smart guy like Dan to take over some of those brands. And now, a year or two down the road, you're sitting pretty.
Yeah. Like I said, very savvy.
So now the only question that remains, and I kind of feel like there'd be riots in the street if this was the case, but nothing in the FDA legislation says that Cuban cigars can just enter the market willy-nilly. They would still have to go through the process before they could be on the shelf. They'd have to go through the deeming regulation process of being approved to be in the market.
That's
but
true.
You got to wonder, especially with politicians, all it takes is one executive order, one quick pass through the Senate, and all of a sudden Cubans get exempted because, you know, it's a humanitarian effort or some other reason.
Yep, it's very possible. I mean, I'm not that I'm a huge fan of Obama or anything like that, but I would like to think that, you know, Obama and the people that are behind the strings trying to open up relations with Cuba realize what the FDA is doing. And I'm assuming they do. And I got to think they've got something in the works that'll bypass this, because otherwise you might not see a Cuban cigar on the market ever. Potentially. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. We will see.
Can you imagine, though? Can you imagine? I mean, you look at the market reaction when the embargo sort of got softened with that decision just for individuals to be able to travel anywhere in the world and buy Cuban products. Can you imagine what the reaction would be in the industry and among industry people if whoever the next president is, because this isn't something that's going to happen before the next president gets sworn in.
Doubt it.
But let's say third quarter, fourth quarter next year, some sort of policy gets rammed through and all of a sudden Cubans get exempted from the FDA process. Can you imagine what the reaction is going to be among all the manufacturers that are currently sitting under those regulations?
I mean, they're going to be pissed. I don't think there's any doubt about people being pissed. But the thing is that, at least for my thing, is that, they're going to be pissed. But at the end of the day, right? Like, is it going to matter? You know what I mean? It's not like you're pissing off the cigarette industry that can fight you and has deep pockets to fight you for 10 years. You know what I mean? Yeah, people are going to be pissed. There's going to be some nasty Facebook posts. But outside of that, not to be callous or anything, but I don't know. We'll see. And it'll be very interesting to see how it shakes out. Like, however you vote, Trump or Hillary, I mean, Trump's came out pretty hard against the regulation. I mean, it's not just cigars, but it's natural gas, fracking, coal, kind of everything, offshore drilling, where he's like, I'm just going to wipe all this away. So see what happens in the next, the election's next week, but in a month after that. Well, actually 2 months after that.
Yeah. So for those of you who are tuning in live to Cigar Chat tonight, we're going to have a special press release coming up right after the show, which means that I got to go to my email and post it. So stay tuned to Cigar Federation. This is some secret squirrel stuff coming at you right after the show. Well, not right after the show. It might take me 5 or 10 minutes to post it, but it's coming up after the show. So you want to hit that F5 button, refresh. It could be very interesting. But I'll just remind our audience here, tune in to Cigar Chat, broadcast around the world, heard on the Armed Forces Radio Network. I'm your guest co-host, John the Cigar Surgeon. You know me from sharing our pairings. I'm here with our host, Logie.
What's
Tobacco
up,
Jesus.
Logie, Tobacco Jesus knows
Jesus.
More than you do.
This last segment is brought to us by Cigar Oasis. Cigar Oasis, they're the leading company in the industry for cigar humidification. If you aren't using a Cigar Oasis, are your cigars really protected? You need to set it and forget it today.
I use my Cigar Oasis. My XL Magnum, which kind of sounds like a condom size.
Right? You gotta love it when they add Magnum to it, because it's like
you got to.
It just sounds cooler.
It just makes it sound like it's just more potent. But yeah, no, I mean, I've used it. I got it 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And it's working like a dream, my friend.
Props to them on the new models. They've got cigar beads in there, so that you don't have just sort of loose water or foam sitting in the basin. Really smart move, because it's a big unit. It's got, like, I want to say, was that like a half gallon maybe of water in there?
No, I mean, it might be like, when I put a brick in it, it's
a lot of water, bro.
It'll absorb like 60 ounces. And a gallon's what, 128? So yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, so it's a lot of water, and obviously
it's a lot more than you think it is, which is kind of funny, because now I'm thinking that it is kind of a gallon.
Because I mean, obviously it's wintertime up here, so I'm refilling my Cigar Oasis units probably every month or so, versus the summertime where I can kind of go almost 3 months. I mean, it drinks up a lot of distilled water, and you start pouring it in there, and you think, boy, if I tip this bad boy over in the bottom of a humidor, it's going to be a very unfun time. So props to them for adding the beads. Like I said, set it, forget it today, Cigar Oasis. So we talked about the industry. We talked about bloggers. What else have we talked about?
An interesting piece, and I can't believe you didn't mention it, because in the same breath as there's something interesting happening. I think it was this week or last one that the FDA issued some guidance on what.
And I think we're losing Logan there.
Product approval.
Sorry, no! Say that again, Logan. I think we missed you there for a couple seconds.
Hold on just 1 second. Let me get back here. So they issued some guidance on, what manufacturers would actually have to submit in their either substantial equivalents to go through the filing process. Did you see that?
I did not see that. I have no idea how I missed that. So they've actually got got details now, because that was the biggest thing. They made up all this policy on, you know, you had to go through this whole process, and people were like, okay, you know, that sucks. What's the process? And we're sort of met with dead air because there was no answer to that, and there certainly was no answer when the FDA regulations hit on August 8th. There was no explanation as to what that process looked like, how much it would cost. So you're saying now that that's out?
Yeah, so they published the draft guidance on what you'd have to disclose in terms of the ingredients. And basically, everyone was thinking they'd have to go down to be like, this is Nicaraguan, grown from this plot, you know, and this variety of Corojo 99 and da-da-da-da-da. No, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that heavy. But I think it's still a little fuzzy. You have to list any chemicals that were used other than, you know, potable water, which is just obviously clean water.
Yep.
And then you're going to have to say the type of tobacco. So, you know, burley, you know, Oriental, Latakia, black tobacco, which would be cigars, the variety. So that, I think that's where it could be a little interesting. Because you could just say Corojo 99, or you could say Mexican San Andreas, or you could have to get specific to be like Mexican San Andreas from 2008, da 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 da. You have to say the cure method, which
kind of makes sense.
Which kind of makes sense. So,
air cured, fire cured,
steam, air. So most cigar tobacco, I mean, there might be a little heat, and not from not from a fire, or not from you know, like a coal fire, or, you know, burning any hickory logs like fire cured tobacco other than Drew Estate and some others. But, you know, mostly it's just air and, you know, small heat. And then a description of anything that you've done to re-engineer the DNA of the tobacco, which I don't even know what that means. But variety could mean a lot of things. So will people, because I could see a lot of people way if you publish your ingredients list. I mean, most every cigar is going to come in the same type, which would be, you know, a black tobacco. The cure method is pretty much going to be all air, heat, wind, all the same. Most 99% of cigars. So depending on the variety, I could see a lot of cigars getting in through substantial equivalence potentially, which is, I think, a good thing.
That was kind of where I was going to go with next. I mean, if really the only thing separating the majority, because like you said, all of it's black tobacco, we know that for a fact. Maybe you've got some different cure methods, which really at the end of the day, what 90% of the product out there is going to be probably air cured, and you know what fire cured's probably got to be maybe 3%, 4% of the market.
I doubt even that much, if that.
So that's, I mean, so I mean, I see that all as a good thing, because now you've got really a door open to say, look, 90% of the products on the market are exactly the same. Yes, they are grown in different places. They're produced the same way with the same ingredients. They're the same base tobaccos. And obviously there's, you know, like you said, there's really you've got what, Corojo, San Andreas, Maduro,
Mexican San Andreas, Indonesian.
Maybe you could use some Indonesian.
Havana.
So there's not a lot. Yeah. The core seeds are not, you know, obviously there's some hybridization that's gone on, but really the core tobacco remains the same really across the industry. So that really does kind of open the door for some savvy lawyers, and Frank Herrera, I hope you're listening, to hopefully maybe start ramming through, because really I think once that first group of products gets substantially equivalized, I don't think that's a term, but I'm just going to coin it, substantially equivalized, then that cracks that door wide open where people can say, well, my product's exactly the same.
That's true. This is very true. So I don't know, man. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, I think that's a good thing, but we will see how that shakes out.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very interesting. I think obviously we kind of have to look at the through rose-colored glasses here, because there is a bit of a limitation on the good news you can look for here. The rules are here to stay. I mean, I know people on Facebook are talking about executive orders to overturn it. Let's be honest, that's not happening. You're in a dream world. The regulations are here to stay. Really, the goal at this point is to try and mitigate those regulations as much as possible. So really the question, I think, then becomes, Logan, for me, is that if you can get a wide swath of cigars put through for substantial equivalence, does that now reopen the market maybe a little bit for a new boutique manufacturer to hit the market and say, listen, I'm being made at this factory. All of their cigars are substantially equivalized. My cigar is being blended at their factory with their tobacco, which is substantially equivalized. Does that naturally make me able to be on the market without having to go through complex regulations?
To a certain extent, I think. I mean, you won't have to go through, the complete testing and all of that. You'll still have to go through this substantial equivalence process, which, we haven't even issued guidance on how much that could be. I mean, that could be a couple of $1,000s, or that could be a couple of $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming that number is low, then yeah, I think you would still see, I mean, the market as itself would probably still exist in some form or fashion. Like, I mean, I think Pete could probably get away still making monsters. And I think, small boutique runs, like some of the Colored Project stuff in the SigFed store, potentially would go away depending on the price. But if it was something, easy, maybe Viaje stuff, real small run stuff would go away. But other limited editions that are, potentially, 20,000 cigars, I think you could still see. And constant production, I think you would still see as well.
One of the things I don't think we've really talked about on Cigar Chat, and I've always been cautious to broach this topic, but I'm going to talk about it tonight because Will Cooper of Stogie Geeks, and if you haven't checked out Stogie Geeks, definitely check it out. He's talked about what they call stealth releases. And
you mean in the wild?
In the wild, and for those of our listeners who aren't aware of what that is, what that means is the DME regulations hit the market on August 8th, and everyone was saying, well, where was all this product at the IPCPR? It was, from our perspective, there's a lot of new product, but there wasn't as much new product as we were expecting. All of a sudden, after August 8th, pictures, product, somehow hit the market.
Ended up in the wild.
It ended up in the wild. And you know what? I got to say, this is not me slamming any manufacturer out there. Brother, do it any way you can do it to make it happen. I don't care. But I think it's really interesting that we've probably seen as many press releases about new product after August 8th as we did prior to August 8th and during the IPCPR and following the IPCPR with announcements of new product at the IPCPR.
It's true. It's very true. It's very true. I mean,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Surgeon.
I was going to say the unfortunate thing about that is obviously that comes to a pretty hard halt on August 8th of 2018, but go ahead and finish your thought there. Sorry.
No, you're right. I mean, I think it's a good thing because it'll preserve the market, in current state in some form or fashion, which is great, right? But I think what people fail to realize is that let's just pretend, and I don't know so much this year at the trade show, right? But let's fast forward to early 2018 and a manufacturer wants to come out with a limited edition in the spring. Wearing my retailer hat for a second, I would be, unless it was something that I knew would just sell out lightning quick, they have that preempted and I know that there's 6 months to sell it. I mean, based on the guidance that they've given, any product that, has failed their testing or hasn't met their requirements by August 8th, assuming it's not still in the testing process, would become basically illegal to sell. So unless it was something, it was, you bought really small and stuff. So although it's good for this year, I don't think when you go into 2018, even having a bunch of blends, parked or out in the wild is really going to help people because most retailers are cautionary to carry boutiques in the first place and have even another reason not to carry them now because they don't know if they'll sell.
And you know what? It's hard to fault the B&Ms for that. I mean, like I said, I'm in the industry now.
No, I don't.
So you don't want to drop $300, $400, $500 on stock with the hope that that stock's going to move. You got to really manage your inventory levels, especially in the cigar market, because you can't have a box sit on the shelf for a year and not move any of that product. It's not like the cigarette industry where they'll sometimes take that product back. That doesn't happen in the cigar industry. Yeah.
No, it's very true.
Now, we don't normally do this on Cigar Chat, Logan, but I'm going to read a live press release. Are you excited?
Okay.
You ready for this?
I don't care, whatever.
All right, so a live press release. So, Mambacho Cigars SA has added Robbie Ranson as their brand manager.
Are we doing that now?
We're doing that right now.
I didn't realize we were doing that now.
That's how we roll here on I've got approval.
Well, you didn't have approval from me, but that's okay.
No. Who are you again?
I don't know, man. Maybe the guy who doesn't pay you anything that you still sometimes listen to. Let me just say a few words.
Can I read the announcement, and then maybe we can talk about this in the After Dark segment?
I would like it. Was this the actual formal press release that's going out to media outlets?
Yes.
All right, let me hear how much they talked Rob up. Let's hear it.
Roger that. Effective November 1st, 2016, Granada-based Mombacho Cigars SA announced today that Robert Rasmussen has joined the company as brand manager effective November 1st. Claudio Segura has been quoted as saying, "We are extremely excited to have Rob on board. His enthusiasm and deep knowledge of the cigar industry will add a new place to the Mombacho vision and strategy. He embraces the same Mombacho values of family and quality to create the most memorable cigar experience." Rasmussen has been the leading member of cigar media since 2009. After co-founding CigarChat in 2010, he was recruited to revive CigarFederation.com in 2013. CigarChat is now one of the largest cigar shows in the world. Yes, it is. And Cigar Federation has a thriving community of members. Yes, it does. "I am thrilled to join a company like Mombacho," said Rasmussen. "Being able to use my experience in the cigar industry to help this brand get to the next level is very exciting." Rasmussen will be in charge of all marketing, design, and media communications. He will also act as a brand ambassador at events and trade shows. You'll see that get posted to Cigar Federation pretty shortly after the show airs.
Nice.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. So, let me be the first, Rob, to congratulate you. It's been a long, arduous journey with you, period. But we are very glad to see you move on to the next phase in your cigar career. And I think most people will miss you on Cigar Federation. I will not miss you. But nevertheless, your lack of presence will be felt. So for those that don't know, obviously I'm in a Sig Fed with Rob being gone. No longer he'll be on CigarChat and a few other things. So, stay tuned. Stay tuned.
We'll have more information about that on next Thursday's CigarChat, and probably talk a little bit about that on sharing our pairings next Wednesday as well. We'll obviously talk a little bit about that in the After Dark segment as well. But obviously Robbie's, and I gotta wonder, Logan, did you have the chat with Robbie like you had the chat with me about entering into the cigar industry formally?
I did, but I don't think he heeded my warning quite as much as. Well, you didn't really heed my warning either, but
no, I went whole hog.
I gave Rob. I love Mombacho, right? Like, there was when he told me. First of all, he caught me on a bad day. So that was one, and two, it kind of caught me off guard because I was in the middle of trying to get this throwdown launch and stuff. So I wish Rob nothing but the best, but it was interesting because it's kind of a unique time to get in the market, right? There's kind of and Rob and I talked through some of the stuff, but every time I'm in Miami, I always stop and see Claudio. I think Mombacho. Hell, they're Canadian, for the love of God. Yeah. Like, they're good people. So it'll be interesting to see what Rob can bring. Distributed in the U.S. and they have a little bit of a presence, but they're more international, more Canadian based in terms of sales. So it'll be interesting to see what Rob can do. But yeah, no, I'm excited. It might mean that I'll smoke less Mombachos because Rob's there. But needless to say. Yeah,
obviously, beyond the fact that they're a Canadian company, and you got to support the Canadian companies. You got Mombacho, you got Epic, you got Black Lotus, the Dominion Cigar Company, all great Canadian brands. And, obviously we're going to support Canadian brands as a Canadian, but Mombacho does really well up here. We've got them, I think, in almost all of our stores. And, the thing I tell people is, like, look, they're priced for the Canadian market. They're aggressively priced. They're a great cigar, and they're as competitive as anything else on the shelf. Try one. You'll love it. And sure enough, people try them, and then I go back the next week and the box is half empty. And it's like, yeah, I told you so. But
kind of told you.
I told you. Like, you think I was going to tell you to smoke a Giacomo cigar? Like,
yeah, are you listening?
Are you listening to me? Why would I tell you to smoke something bad? But obviously, Robbie will be missed, and we'll have more about that on the CigarChat coming up the following week, which the guest essentially will be Robbie Ranson on November 10th.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It'll be me interviewing Rob.
It'll be you interviewing Rob, and I don't know if has Rob been preparing for the hot seat.
I don't know, but he should be. I'm definitely going to ask him about his business plan, and I'm definitely going to make it super friggin' awkward.
I would expect nothing less from you.
I know. Thank you.
So obviously, I'm going to do my best to fill the shoes, but I am certainly not the color commentator that Rob is, but I'll certainly do my best, and certainly do my best to keep Logie on point, keep it from getting too uncomfortable, and when necessary, dial it back, bring it back to cigars.
Dial it back a notch.
Just dial it back a notch. So I hope everyone who's tuned in to this episode of Cigar Chat with John and Logan has enjoyed this last 58 minutes of live broadcast. We know all of the people out there on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Hope you have a chance to take a break, enjoy a cigar, relax, maybe have a coffee, and have been entertained by this 58 minutes of Giacomo discussion. I'm just going to keep using the word Giacomo because I love that word.
That's a great word.
It's a great word. Cigar Chat, of course, is broadcast around the world, heard on CigarFederation.com. If you aren't already, subscribe to podcast. I don't know about you, Log, but I drive a lot, and I listen to podcasts pretty much nonstop because, frankly, regular radio just drives me absolutely bonkers. I can only listen to the top 40 music for so long. So I started listening to a lot of podcasts, and I tune into a lot of cigar media, and I listen to us a lot. So it gives me a chance to just listen to how terrible my voice is. But the other thing is, obviously, I listen to a lot of Cigar Chat, and I listen to a lot of other programs that are out there. So if you aren't subscribed on podcast, you got to. It makes a great way to pass the time on the airplane, and, of course, while you're driving, it's a great way to pass the time as well.
I would agree. So, in parting thoughts, screw you, Rob. See you later.
Bye.
Bye, Rob.
Call me.
And we're back. You Eskimo.
What's up, Donkey?
What's up, Donkey?
So I hope that was okay. That I'm obviously I'm going to post it on the site, but I figured it'd be kind of a nice little live read.
A little bit. Yeah, kind of. I didn't realize that was coming, but hey, we get a break. Rob emailed me at 8:37, so 20 minutes ago. He goes, "I want to apologize for that email." My response: "F you." Fuck you, Rob.
Never stop being you.
But anyways, never stop being you. But I wish him the best of luck. I mean, Bacho's a good place, and we'll see. It'll be quite nice to be able to go into Bacho's booth next year at IPCPR and be able to haggle his balls off on my purchase. And he's gonna have to sit there and suck my balls. It's gonna be fucking awesome. I might just have you guys record it.
I'm surprised, Logan, that you have not yet been named as the UN ambassador for the United States.
And they should, man. Hey, if Trump wins, hell, they might. You never know.
So, just a interesting little thing. When I'm down in Nica next week, at the tail end of the trip, we're actually going to be heading back to Granada, which will be my first time back to Granada. I think in
that'll be cool.
God, I think it's been 4 years since I've been there. So it'll be really cool. Granada is a really nice city. It's interesting that Mombacho is the only cigar manufacturer operating out there, and the Casa Favilli operation they have there, the building on the corner there is super cool.
True.
Now, have you ever been in? Have you been into? When's the last time you were in Granada?
Fuck, it was beginning of. It was January 2014.
Wow.
So I think it was before Mombacho even bought the factory, I think.
Yeah, because I think it was at the end of 2014 that they bought the factory, and then they had to go through the approval process because it's a heritage site.
Historic landmark, yeah.
Yeah, which, props to the Nicaraguan government, because that's, I think, one of the things that isn't done enough in a lot of places is old buildings get torn down, and, once that history is gone, she gone.
She gone. It's very true. So, no, I mean, I'm excited for Rob. I think it's going to be good. And as I said before, Rob, go fuck yourself. Fucking asshole.
So, did you watch any of the America's game on what was it last night? I'm sure On can talk about it to death because who is our resident Lancero Nation, is also a insufferable Chicago Cubs fan. Did you watch any of that baseball game, the Game 7 of the World Series?
I sure did. I watched pretty much all of it. I made the mistake of getting in bed right about, I think it was the bottom of the 8th when the Indians tied it up with that 2-run home run. And then they had the rain delay, kind of middle of the 9th approximately. And right about the time, the last thing I remember was about the time they pulled the tarp out on the field and they were calling a rain delay, I fell asleep. And then I woke up frantically this morning. I'm like, oh, fuck, who won? Who won? Who won? And I couldn't find anything because I have a little Kindle trending stories. None of the trending stories were about the game, which fucking blew me away.
Was it 108 years?
108 years. And I looked and I'm like, holy shit. And then I watched the last inning basically, and it was fucking awesome.
I didn't catch it live because up in Canada, of course, it was completely blacked out, and I had to pay some sort of exorbitant fee to watch it. But I did check the play-by-play in the last 2 innings, and I was telling my significant other, Laura, she's like, do you even care about baseball? And I'm like, no, not really. But I said, well, it would be really interesting to me, and maybe this is the dark humorist in me, as I said, if Chicago loses tonight, I said, I mean, you talk about when cities go nuts over sports wins or losses. I mean, Chicago would truly tear itself apart if they made it to Game 7, overtime, and lost to the World Series. I mean,
oh, yeah.
That would have been bad news.
I mean, I was watching the game, and I was even texting on, and I'm like, boy, and your boys look fucking hot. And he's like, dude, like, it's only like the 6th inning. And I go, dude, but they're like spanking ass right now. They're doing so awesome. And they just are chipping away at that lead. And then I didn't want to text on anymore because I'm afraid he was going to be pissed off. But I was like, oh, man, please don't fuck this. I'm not even a Cubs fan. Like, and by proxy, being a Cardinals fan, I hate the Cubs. Mm-hmm. But, like, I was just like, fuck, guys, get your shit together. Let's win this fucking game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I feel bad for Cleveland because I think Cleveland's winless for, 47, 48 years?
No, it's 68 years.
And, I mean, definitely I feel bad for Cleveland. But first of all, there ain't no riots in Cleveland after losing the World Series. I'm not kidding. Chicago would have torn itself apart if Chicago lost that game. So while I feel bad for Cleveland, I think most people who aren't diehard Cleveland Indians fans we're definitely rooting for the Chicago Cubs. I mean,
of course.
That's the underdog stories to end all underdog stories. And also, I think it's kind of a cool story when you have 2 teams with that amount of history not making it to the 2 highest. That's never going to happen. We're never going to see that ever happen again in our lifetimes.
Probably not. Yeah, I mean, the 2 longest droughts without a World Series championship. Playing each other. And it wasn't like a blowout either. It came down to the fucking last out of the game, basically. You know what I mean?
Like, I mean, I gotta say, if you're gonna, I mean, obviously it's heart attack inducing, but if you're gonna have a game with that much history behind it, going all the way to Game 7 and then taking it all the way into overtime innings, come on. You can't ask for a better finish to a story like that. Absolutely.
Oh no, absolutely. You can't ask for. Yeah, I mean, and I can't remember some of the stats, but it was the first time that a game-tying home run was hit in the 8th inning in a World Series, or some crap like in a Game 7 of a World Series. Like, it was like so many different things happen that have never happened before. So it was awesome, man.
Yeah,
it was just
pretty
good.
Cool.
It's like one of those good sports things, like not so much for the Russians, but the miracle of 1980, or like, those type of things that happen where you're just like, holy shit balls.
By the way, I'm old enough to have watched that on television.
You actually watched that on TV?
Of course. Canadian, man. You can miss a good hockey game? Are you kidding me?
Dude, those Ruskies were tough, man.
The Ruskies definitely dominated. I mean, and obviously people can throw things around about performance enhancement and whatnot, but that doesn't really matter so much in hockey. Like, you can shoot up steroids, you can take HGH, THT, whatever. That doesn't necessarily. It's not like baseball. It's not like football. That only takes you to a certain point in hockey. I mean, really, at its core, it's endurance and skill. And
Yeah,
you can't really inject anything for that. And they were dominant, absolutely dominant, until the America's team dethroned them.
I know. I actually watched, if you ever have a chance to watch the 30 for 30 that talks about the miracle, but they do it from the Russian perspective.
Oh.
Holy shit, it's so fucking good. Like, they interview all the players and they talk about the coaches, dude. It's so fucking good. Like, I've
really
watched like 10 times because it's that good.
Now, is that because I know Netflix is really killing it with all kinds of really cool documentaries. Is that on Netflix yet?
Should be.
Well, I'm gonna have
I
to
want
check
to say
out.
that I just saw it on TV, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you can get it on Hulu or whatever, streaming.
Unless you're in Canada.
Well, yeah, you know, Canada.
Canada. Well, cool story, good news. Robbie will be back from assignment next week, and of course we'll have a live sharing our pairings. We had to pre-record this session this week because he was on assignment, so we're going to have a live session next Wednesday at our normal time of 6 p.m. And then we're going to have Robbie as the guest, and mostly I'm just going to pour a bunch of whiskey and smoke cigars and just watch you tear into them for a very uncomfortable 58 minutes on Thursday. But it'll be
I know it's going to be great. I hope.
I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a good sort of send off. I guess we would just call it the farewell Rob show.
Yeah. Say, don't let the door hit you on the way out, Rob.
Any parting words for our live audience, Logan?
Yeah. I mean, just have a great week. Have your dog or pet spayed or neutered, and we'll see everyone next week.
We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to Cigar Chat live on CigarFederation.com.